The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 366 with Kyle Richmond from Rebuilt Strength and Rehab. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast, where we're here to help you build a stronger game because we know that every golfer deserves to play better longer. This week, we have Kyle Richmond from Rebuilt Strength and Rehab on the show. And Kyle's a chiropractor up in the Chicago area that really I found by watching his Instagram videos. He's posting a lot of great content in the world of chiropractic, performance, and especially mobility. So we talk a lot about the importance of being able to work on your mobility where it has a purpose, and it's going to help your athletic ability to play golf better, but really just to move better in overall life, and how you can do that with intent as opposed to just working on a bunch of stretching and flexibility exercises. Kyle's posts are very popular in our world, in the golf and fitness world, and so it was cool to finally get to meet him and talk to him about his strategies, not just in the training facility, but also on how he built his Instagram account and how he built his following, how he has now turned that into a full brick and mortar business that he's starting to work with clients in his own facility. So you're going to really enjoy this episode with Kyle Richmond. Our partners over at Linksole have been providing us with the best apparel for both on the course and off the course, from polos to t-shirts like the one I have on right now. Everything that they have is meant to be worn from the golf course to wherever you're going next, whether that be casual, whether that be to the beach. There's all different options over there. So go to 18strong.com/Linksole. You'll get 20% off of anything in your cart over on Linksole's website. So again, 18strong.com/Linksole for our favorite brand of apparel for anything on the golf course and off. Now let's get to this week's interview. Kyle Richmond, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. Yeah, for sure. So this is cool. This is the first time we've ever met, connected, really. And one of the things that I love about what we do here, one of my favorite things at 18 Strong is like trying to find people that we really respect. We see them doing great things online, and you know, your post just kept coming up in front of me on Instagram. We've reposted quite a few of your things, and you know, so it's great to connect. It's cool to see what you're doing, and you know, I like to think of us as kind of a lens that our golfers can go to as like a trusted resource, because we know that if whatever's on our page, if it's us posting somebody else, it's because it's stuff that we like. It's stuff that we trust. So you've been doing awesome stuff. So first, thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Hey, I appreciate that. That's incredible. And I think that's the coolest thing about now social media is the people I've met, the rooms I've been in, and stuff that I didn't even expect. You know, I was the guy coming out of school like, I don't need social media. That's kind of dumb. I don't want to do all these things. But now it's like, it's really what my practice is like kind of revolved around now, which is amazing.
Yeah, so give me a little bit of that story, because you were saying you're just kind of recently out of chiropractic school the last 2 years. You've just opened your new practice, which we'll get into that too. But tell me how this kind of snowballed into, you know, you have a very big following on social media, and you said your practice really revolves a lot around that.
Yeah, so I graduated in October of 21 from chiropractic school, and I had an Instagram account that I just used to post like my CrossFit workouts, family stuff, whatever it was. And then as I'm getting towards the end of school, I'm still not using it. I'm thinking like, I see people on there. I don't think it'll be that valuable. Whatever, I graduate, and over that year, I started posting something I work for. Is like, hey, you should post some things, you know. Really the best way to show, or the best thing about it was to show, hey, yes, I'm a chiropractor. And everyone has the predisposition of like, I know what a chiropractor is. Yeah, been there, done that. I'm like, well, I do things differently. Let me post and kind of show that. I posted for like a year on and off of like maybe once or twice a week, whatever I had. Family stuff, my dog, gym, mobility, you name it. October of 2022 comes around. I'm like, all right, I saw this challenge, post a reel every single day for the whole month. I'll try it. Learned a lot in that month, got really efficient at it, how to post, when to post, do all these things. I still just continued to do that every day until mid-February happens. We're out to dinner. I pick up my phone, and there's like 2,000 missed notifications. I'm like, I don't ever get that. I get like 30 likes a day maybe, and that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
I had a reel that just started going viral, and it started getting like hundreds of thousands of views and likes, and my follower count went from like 2,000 to 10,000 in like 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
oh, okay, this is really happening. Like, I saw the K after it. I'm like, this is crazy. So I ran with it. I started doing more. I got people reaching out. I'm working with people virtually, doing all these things. Fast forward to about June of 2023, and I have about 30,000 followers. I'm making money off social media in terms of like ads and clients, all these things. I was at the point where I was unhappy at my old job. I was ready to go out on my own. Well, I was fortunate. I had an income that said, hey, if you go on your own, your overhead is all like, you're ready. You don't have, there's almost no risk, which I know there's risk owning a business, but that made it easy. And then everyone around here knew of me because of social media. Like you said, people say like, man, I've seen your videos all over the place, and now I'm following you, or I come in as a patient. But that was really what kind of kickstarted things. And from there, I've used it to meet incredible people, companies, all these things I can get into. But it's been nothing short of absolutely just amazing.
That's awesome. So give us a little bit of your background, even before Chiro school, like sports-wise. Did you play a bunch of sports? I know you were in CrossFit and personal training and all of those things. So give us a little background on yourself.
Okay, so growing up, I played a little bit of everything, but gravitate towards soccer. Soccer was my everything from about early junior high through high school. I thought I was going to play in college. It was kind of always the goal. I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor as early as like my freshman year of high school because I had an injury. I separated my shoulder real bad playing soccer, and it was a chiro PT mix that helped me rehab. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I knew I wanted to do that. I got towards the end of high school looking at colleges and was like, well, I know graduate school is very expensive. It's very time consuming. And the team I was looking to play for was like, well, you can't work or do anything. It's just soccer. So I kind of, I made the choice to give it up. But then I found CrossFit, which was a way to still be active and do stuff competitively. I did CrossFit for 10 years all the way up through COVID. I personal trained, did all these things, and that's where my love for fitness and exercise kind of blended with the chiropractic, because I treat very similar to, I hate to always say, like more like a PT. It's not just come in and get adjusted. I do manual therapy. I love it, time and place, but a lot of this stuff is, hey, exercise based. So if it wasn't for CrossFit and personal training and learning how to coach people, I think is also another huge skill that helped me as a chiropractor. You're coaching people all day long. You're not just sitting there, hey, how are you? Crack, 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 out the door. But so it was soccer and then CrossFit. I've dabbled in other sports growing up, and it's funny because golf is not my sport. I am so bad. It was hand-eye coordination stuff like extension of the hand, baseball, hockey, golf. I just was uncoordinated in that. I've gotten better, but it's still we're a long ways away.
Do you play a little bit?
Not as of recently. Well, when I was in graduate school, it was like I wanted, but it was like, do I buy groceries or do I go play golf?
Yeah, right.
It was really like that's what it was for a while. I need two more. I've done just some indoor stuff here, but that is on my list. I have the golf clubs in my garage from my dad. Like that is the next big thing now that I have a little more disposable income in a sense and a little more time. Owning a business, you don't have that much time when you start, but I have a little more now, so it's on my list.
So where you're located, you're Frankfort, Illinois, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And so where is that in relation to?
So Chicago, it's southwest Chicago by about 30, 45 minutes. But I mean, you are so close to everything. The city's right there, all the north suburbs, south suburbs. It's just all meshed into one giant area. Probably similar to how I'd say, probably outside St. Louis is, right?
Yeah.
It's just city upon city. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, we got plenty of friends in the Chicago area that can help you with that golf swing.
Hey, I need it. Trust me. I can hit it far. Do I know where it's going? Nope.
Yeah, I'm sure the swing speed isn't an issue for you. It's the club face control. It's getting that club on the ball.
All that. Yeah, well, because like the best piece of advice I got was, hey, let the club do the work for you. Because I'm just going up there just trying to just smash it as hard as I can. You're like, you don't need to do that. That helped me a ton. But I need some work.
So let's talk a little bit about your practice, kind of your mentality working with clients, because you mentioned you're not what people tend to think of when they think chiropractic. I think that's really changing too. You actually just made a post recently about, should you go chiro or PT? And it was really like end of the post was like, no, it just depends on who, how that person treats you and what their philosophies are and everything. So, but I really do think, and I have a couple great buddies, a lot of people that have been on the show here that they're not what you think of when you think chiropractor. I think the old school is, come in, crack your neck, pop your back. But there's so much to it. So when somebody comes in to see you, give us just an idea of what that might look like.
Okay, so first I like to set the expectations because either they've come in because they've heard a good referral, that I'm different, or they'll come in expecting chiropractic care in the sense of like, they just want the adjustment and go home. So I have to first sit down day one, take the entire history, kind of give them a little more of like what to expect in terms of treatment. Hey, like a lot of the education on it. I'm going to send you home with some things and just make sure, one, we're a good fit. I do get some people that aren't happy with that because they do want to just get adjusted, go home, which, can I do that sometimes? Sure. It's not my favorite. It's not what I wanted to show people. So they'll come in, go through the history, a lot of tests, exams, get baselines, get assessments, which they're also like, this is new. I'm moving around, doing things, maybe trying to elicit pain, seeing what happens if we do this. And by the end of it, they've been moving and doing things for almost an entire hour. But it's a mix of exercise. It's a mix of, there's soft tissue, manual therapy. Adjustments are usually later in treatment care. If I got some of the radiculopathy or some sort of like referral-based pain, I'm not even manipulating the spine. Half the time it's just showing them, self-education. What can you do outside of here? How can you get back to your fitness? How can you get, people think they can't go to the gym because they have back pain. I'm like, hey, this might be gone in a couple weeks, but let's still get you doing things. And I think that is the most valuable thing of what I do, is making sure they have the confidence and the tools to go and do things outside of here, because very few cases probably do require a ton of rest and a ton of like, hey, let's be careful. Those are here and there, but a lot of it's just self-management. Really, I want to see you a handful of times. I do get more of the maintenance-based stuff. But then, they come through my door 3, 4, 5 visits, and then guess what? Now they're referring 4 other people, and they go, hey, this is different. It's a chiropractor. I get people that don't even know I'm a chiropractor because I'm a little hesitant on it. My parents' friends won't come in here. It's like, oh, your son's a chiropractor? Yeah, I know what that is. I'm like, please no.
Yeah. When somebody comes to work with you, do you have some people that now just kind of come on a regular basis, more for almost kind of the training side of things, as opposed to, not the typical, hey, come back, we got to crack you next week, but it's more like, do you have clients that have been with you for a while that are really just coming in to get their training in?
Yes, and more, those are like my active people, right? They go to the gym every single day. They want to stay involved in what they're doing. And usually something comes up by next visit. Hey, I was doing shoulder press and I got this like just weird tightness in my shoulder. Awesome, let's assess it, see maybe where you lack things. Because again, I'm not doing head to toe every single time someone comes in. What their main complaint is, we focus on. But then people that do want to just have to be coached through things. Hey, I know I lack internal rotation in my hip. Well, let's keep working on that month over month and just keep improving it, because we know it's going to take time. We know you're always improving, and God, aches and pains happen all the time. And I do have more of the maintenance-y based things, and I think that's something that's really typical of chiropractic, is maintenance care. So people already see chiropractic and go, oh, I got to go for my monthly maintenance. I think it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. Obviously, for business, you want to have your recurring, patients, but then again, too, I don't want them to become fully reliant. If they're not getting value from me on that maintenance visit, then I don't want them to feel like they have to come in. And I'm very, I really like to communicate that with people, that, you're not forced to come in just because you've been under my care. It's not a lifelong sentence, but if you find value, then we can make things work.
Yeah, I know I have. So, I started out in the physical therapy world, the clinical world, and now I'm more on the fitness side. We'll call it performance side, right? Because the PT always blends in, but I'm not doing traditional clinical PT where a doc refers them over. It's more on the fitness side. But, some people, they just want that accountability, like, oh no, I have an appointment with Kyle at this time every week, and they know that they're going to get it done, and that's their way of keeping themselves accountable, which is awesome. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going in to get readjusted every single week to get everything back in balance, right? Yeah.
It's like, hey, were you doing that stuff for your shoulder that we talked about 3 weeks ago? I'm like, oh yeah. I now I'm doing it because I know I'm going to come see you, and then always they feel like they're wasting their time and money. They're like, I don't want to do that. So yeah, the accountability, and that's, again, going back to being a coach, right? You are coaching these people. You're holding them accountable, and that's what a lot of people in fitness really want.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about mobility, because it seems like you really hone in on a lot of mobility work in your posts, from what I'm seeing. And I have a feeling you're going to be able to give me a good definition of mobility versus flexibility. And you do a great job of saying, like, hey, instead of doing this, which is what, this version of whatever, this is actually what mobility looks like. So what is the difference to you between mobility, flexibility for our audience? And then we'll dive a little deeper into that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I'm known around here as like the mobility guy. You're the guy who posts all the mobility stuff.
Right.
At first I did it because yes, it's a little flashy. There's some things that not everyone needs to do, but it caught attention. It showed it was just something different. But I do like to preach that flexibility, mobility. Flexibility is like your passive range of motion, how far I can move you, how far you can maybe stretch into something. Mobility, that's the control part, the strength, the actual training stuff. Mobility work should be challenging. Like, you should get sore. There should be some strain and some effort in it. If you're just sitting in a stretch, we have to define the goals, and I think that's what I like to show people is, they go, I've done mobility work, and you see them over there with a banded distraction. They're just kind of sitting in a stretch. I'm like, well, how about we do a lift off instead? And now you'll see the change. So I preach a lot of mobility. I think it's very scalable. I don't think everyone has to do it. I think a lot of people can benefit from it. I think it's a low level of entry for even just exercise. I can have someone doing a hip car or a hip mobility piece that might be scared of even doing an RDL or a squat. Well, hey, let's just start super low level basic stuff, and then I can progress you to more fitness. So I think the scalability, I can train athletes at the pro level to my 90-year-old grandparents come in here and just need to learn how to move their leg. They don't even know where the control is. So yeah, there's the big thing to kind of discern, flexibility and mobility for people.
So when we're working on different joints, we're working on the ability to control those joints. Really, that's what it boils down to, right? How does that relate to increasing strength? Because, when we go to the gym, obviously everybody wants to go do something where they're going to get stronger. I want to deadlift, I want to squat, I want to split squat. But doing some of the things that you're showing, some of these smaller single joint related things, but work on how to control those can really be a huge boost to your end-all strength when it goes back to those exercises, right?
Agreed. Yeah, you break down the parts. I like to look at maybe somebody doesn't have a great squat as like an eye test. Well, let's look at where your hip moves. Let's look how your ankle moves. Let's look how maybe your low back moves. If we see big deficits in that or places that you can't control or really use those muscles to the best of your ability, well, let's break it down, gain the mobility in that tissue, get stronger there, and then we bring you back to that exercise. I think maybe a lot of people don't understand that too, is they think they see the mobility and that's all they ever have to do. That's the only thing you can do. Well, no, let's use it to get you back to where you need to. And guess what? The best thing now is the full range of motion squats, full range of motion lunges, whatever that is. It doesn't just mean the mobility is like the only thing. And I think a lot of people get surprised when they see my training. They go, well, you're doing like bodybuilding and deadlifts. And yeah, I show that I do mobility. I integrate with all my training because I do like to do it. But it's not the end all be all. So I like to really tell people that it's not the only thing you have to do, but it helps.
And that's where when people go to places like Instagram and they think that that's their education, right? They're going to see a lot of the things that people like you and we put it out there because it's important stuff. And you mentioned this too, but some of it is to catch an eye. It's not something that you make up just to make up, but some of it is things that you may not see a normal person that doesn't have any background in fitness or mobility or chiro or whatever. And it gives different ideas on ways to work through those things. But yeah, like it's not that sexy to post a split squat all the time or a deadlift. So you got to do some of those things. For those of you listening, know that that's not the only piece, right? You have to do the other big things, the other big rocks, but these are the things that you can do to help kind of maximize and increase your efficiency in those joints, in those tissues. So obviously you deal a lot in the world of injury too, right? And doing these types of exercises, especially when you're working on some of the specific strength in the joints, that's what's really building some resiliency too, right? To help you prevent some of those injuries.
100%. Yeah. There's two types of people that come see me. People that are in pain or people that know they need to work on something. Hey, I'm just really stiff in this joint. Like, we can break that down, find a low-hanging fruit, improve that. And if you have more stable, controlled, strong joints, the likelihood of injury is definitely reduced, right? I like to say we can't prevent injury, we can mitigate it though. I can't guarantee just because you've been doing ankle mobility that you're not going to spray your ankle, but that, grade 3 sprain might only be a 1 or 2 then because you've gotten stronger there. So there is benefit in that. So
as you're working with different clients, and you said you run the gamut as far as who you end up working with, from professional athlete to those in their 80s, 90s. What are some of the things when you are helping somebody work through either an injury, or let's even kind of focus a little bit more on maybe mobility and gaining more control? What are some techniques that you can share with just kind of the general public, not somebody that needs real specific detail, but some techniques that are maybe something they haven't heard of, or they don't really know or understand what the reason is that you're doing them?
Okay, so I love that because one thing you'll see a lot on my page, and maybe people have heard about this in terms of mobility, is CARS. CARS stand for Controlled Articular Rotations. What it is moving your joint to its maximum capacity in terms of range of motion. So it's a joint circle in a sense. The reason I love that, because you can take it from basic teaching someone how to move their joint, just learning where it is in space, to training it by loading it up, making it really difficult, taking out compensations. So a good example would be a hip. Most seniors or older adults lack rotation in their hip. One, they don't use it. We don't train that very often. So it degrades a little quicker. I can start someone very basic, just learning how to rotate their hip. Now, the professional athlete that can move their hip phenomenal, well, let's make you stronger and better in that. Let's weight it. Let's take out any low back compensation. So CARS is like that super scalable. It could be a very small range of motion, a larger range of motion, and I can be as nitpicky as I want. Or, hey, I just use it. You're moving your body every day. It's a low barrier to entry for exercise. I'm not going to tell someone go home and do RDLs every morning for your low back and hips, because as an 80-year-old, they go, I don't know what that is. I don't care. But if you show them just how to move their hip and rotation, they're more likely to buy in on that. And then, again, you can scale it to being very difficult for some people.
I love that. Yeah, being able to, because we use CARS a lot. And in fact, we here at 18 Strong, we have what we call our EFDs, our every effing days. And it's mainly some CARS. I went through, I'm FRC and functional range conditioning. And so went through and so we implemented, a lot of the CARS, just shoulders, necks, the scapular muscle, or the scaps, doing all those little things and doing them, the consistency of doing them too makes such a big difference, especially for our population of golfers where they're constantly, most of them are probably sitting at a desk most of the week and then going out on a Saturday morning or Sunday or golf trip and they're trying to play 18, 36 holes. And so speak to the importance of the consistency of getting your body moving and doing those things. And I love the fact that you said you can scale the CARS and make them as hard as you want to, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like to use the phrase use it or lose it. A lot of people will be like, hey, I have a hard time putting my coat on. Well, how often do you reach back behind you in the shoulder extension? They're like, maybe every time I put my coat on in the winter, but then 6 months go by and I haven't put that on. CARS are a way to kind of maintain what you have. So for a lot of people who, as they're aging, you can maintain your range of motion a lot simpler. But I ask people, how often do you take your neck into a full range of motion extension, right? Almost nobody looks up fully into cervical extension. You go, well, you wonder why you lose it. Your body's going to start degrading that and doesn't want to. So CARS are a way to maintain that range of motion.
What are some of the most common injuries and issues that you're seeing on a regular basis?
Well, as a chiropractor, there's a lot of back pain, neck pain, because for whatever reason, and I get it, people think spine, they go chiropractor. Yeah. Some people I have to really tell them, do you do ankle stuff? I'm like, of course I do. I hope that I make that apparent, but low back pain, I think I'm seeing that even a lot more in the younger population. And I don't know if it's because of post-COVID or just technology in general. I have treated more 14 to 17-year-olds with low back pain than I've ever probably seen before. Outside that, a lot of shoulders, a lot of hips from people being active. You do see it all, maybe not as much hands and feet stuff, but the extremities, low back pain, radiculopathies down the arm, that's very common for us as chiropractors.
When you are looking at somebody's back, are there some commonalities that you're seeing? And actually, let's talk about that 14 to 17-year-old population, because many of us, we were all a 14 to 17-year-old, but many of us have 14 to 17-year-olds now. I'm thinking of my older son, and my daughter will soon be in that demographic too. What do you think? You mentioned technology. What are some of the things that you're seeing that's contributing to that back pain? Because as you and I both know, typically when you have back pain, that doesn't mean that you have a bad back. There's something else, right?
Yeah, usually these kids are sitting in flexion, like excessive flexion, or just sustained positions all day long. They sleep, flex, which is no problem, right? But then we get up, we get ready for school, we're sitting there for breakfast, we sit on the bus or in the car, we sit at our desk all day, we go back home. Most kids are now on their iPads or computers, even doing homework for longer periods of time. They're sitting. If they're not in extracurricular activities, which I do see a lot of, then they're sitting even more. Sitting isn't bad, it's not moving your spine is the issue. So I see a lot of people who are, flexion intolerant as kids. And I remember being that age, and you were going outside, you were doing things, you're in every single sport, you weren't sitting on your phone when you were bored, you were going around the house and doing things or playing games. Now there's no reason, they'll just sit there for hours and hours on end. And I see that even in my adults, all the desk workers, there's a lot of similarities that it's sitting, and it's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, I'm picturing my two kids and, those games, the Fortnite,
Right.
watching the silly little videos. And it's a shame that it's not as normal for them to just go out and play. They have more structured times, like to go to practice and,
Right.
the different structured activities where it's run by adults. But there's so much less just going out and goofing around and climbing trees. And, we played roller hockey day in and day out. And
Everything, yeah.
everything. And I think that as much as we specialize in these different sports, and these kids are getting more narrowed focus and the coaching's getting better in those sports, but I really think that they're missing out a lot of that athleticism and just overall human function by just going down one rabbit hole.
I agree. I see that with it's getting really bad in baseball. Baseball, softball, these kids are all year round, one sport, 100 miles an hour in that direction, and you want them to get exposed to different things. Guess what? If you're not doing a lot of rotation, you're not doing a lot of extension, whatever it is in that joint, you're going to lose. You become sensitive to that pain or that range of motion. And, yes, I did a lot of just soccer, and looking back, I wish I did other things. I wish I stayed more in basketball. I wish I did that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Super Bowl, I think it was like maybe last year, 2 years ago, they said, hey, a high percentage of these guys in the Super Bowl played multiple sports in high school and college. Well, that's super important. And I think that now you get the coaches at the high school and college level that almost demonize it if you're not full-time. I wasn't allowed to kick a football in high school because you need to only play soccer. You weren't allowed to go do that, even though it would have been probably for college great if you got good at kicking. You could open up a lot more doors that way. But they're just getting more narrow-minded in terms of sports.
Yeah, I mean, the best soccer player I ever played with, because soccer was my sport as well.
I love it.
Taylor Twellman, if you know who that is, was on my high school soccer team.
No kidding.
And then went on to be the leading scorer in the MLS, played over in Germany. But St. Louis has this cool thing at the History Museum right now. It's a display all about St. Louis soccer history. And so I was reading a little background on Taylor that I didn't even know, but he was offered, I believe, a full ride to play baseball and was invited to try out for, I forget what professional baseball organization, but turned it down to go play collegiate soccer. And it's like, here's a guy, that played at the highest of levels. And he was going through both sports all through high school, or all through grade school, all through high school. And golfer-wise, some of the best golfers out there, some of the most powerful golfers were all multiple sport athletes. It's just kind of crazy that everything has become so specialized.
Yeah, you see it in fitness too, right? People are only doing bodybuilding. They're only doing powerlifting. And what we see over time is if you don't diversify your training, you run into more injuries, long-term health issues. Like I see powerlifters are another one I treat a lot, right? Squat, bench, deadlift. Some accessory, but they are moving so just in the sagittal plane all day long. There's no rotational capacity. There's none of that stuff. And we see them degrade a lot quicker. So it's just that hyper-specificity. There's a time and place for it, but like you said with athletes, like there's a lot of these guys. Patrick Mahomes, baseball, football. Like he was great. He was great at both. A lot of these guys can go to multiple sports. You ever see they drop football players and they can shoot a basketball better than 90% of people, and they don't play basketball, but they're just great athletes. They're great movers.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of those guys cannot swing a golf club though, which I find very interesting. You watch some of the NBA guys. Steph Curry is a definite exception. He's a very good golfer. But if you've ever seen LeBron swing a golf club, it's worse than Charles Barkley, I think.
Yeah. No kidding.
It's pretty
That's
bad.
funny. I never even thought of that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of technique. Yeah.
So have you worked with many golfers in your clinic at all? I mean, do you have any that have come through?
A lot of just, your day-to-day, your office workers that love to golf, and a lot of them, I see a lot with neck issues. They can't rotate their neck very well, and they go and they go through it, and they end up getting the huge spasms or low backs too, because they can't even control their lumbar spine, and not just rotation, but flexion extension. I see a lot of that. And that's more of your maintenance-y kind of people. Like, hey, you want to go golf, make sure you're still doing these things, because you might feel great, but guess what? You go out there, play 18 holes, you haven't played in a while, and things are going to light up on you. So golfing I do treat a lot of golfers.
Yeah, so that population right there, I think is really, aside from a lot of the golf fitness professionals that listen to the show, I think the population you're talking about is really who's listening to the show too. A lot of guys that are my age, mid-40s, maybe late 30s to mid 50s. They are now like really diving into, I want to play more golf. I've got family stuff. I'm limited for time. So you mentioned a couple, like the neck, the low back. What are a couple things if a golfer comes in to you? What are a couple things that you look at and say, like, hey, these are the big rocks that we need to kind of look at, because I know you're going to be swinging a club and rotating and doing all these different activities?
So I always go full assessment: spine, cervical, thoracic, lumbar. Biggest thing with cervical is make sure they have rotation more than anything, because they're spotting that ball. They're not just moving their whole upper back with everything as they go. They're keeping that there, and they have to be able to look over their shoulder. So I'll ask these guys, hey, can you look over their shoulder? And they're like, that's about it. And then you expect them to take all their force and rotate as hard as they can. Lumbar spine too, in terms of a lot of them are stuck in extension, like they're super hyperextended, and then good luck trying to rotate the lumbar spine as you're jammed into extension. So we work on being able to flex the lumbar spine, work on just the breathing to calm down some stuff, learn maybe some better stabilization strategies. And then thoracic spine is in there too, usually just mobilizing them into extension. Most of them are so stiff from their desk jobs that you can't even rotate, because they can't flex or extend it. It is like a block of wood just between cervical and lumbar. So it really is full spine for a majority of them.
Yeah, the rotation component it's such a big deal in golf, right? But when your body's not moving properly, your back is naturally going to rotate in the wrong spot. So what are some of the things that you help them do with the thoracic spine? Because really, you mentioned getting more extension. If the thoracic spine, so for those of you listening, basically your rib cage, the area of your rib cage, but on the back side of your body, if that can't extend backwards a little bit, it definitely can't rotate well too, right?
No.
So are there any little tips or drills that you could kind of talk through? I know it's hard to do on a podcast, right, but a couple things that they could think about doing on either daily basis, weekly basis, just for some of that maintenance piece.
Yeah, I think a big one is sprinkling that in throughout their day. A lot of them who are desk workers, I typically have them do some sort of thoracic extension at their desk. I'll take them, hey, put your hands behind your neck, bring your elbows in front of you a little bit, and lean back over that chair into extension. Let's do maybe a set of 10 every couple hours throughout your day to help loosen that, because we know we need just more time in that position, because a lot of them will just get to the course, or I'll even have them take their golf club behind them and get a little extension there. But I say, hey, if you can sprinkle it in throughout your day when you're sitting there, that's going to help, I think, more than anything to get ahead of that. We do some cervical extension stuff too, but I think just sprinkling it in and making that more of a movement habit, because they're just sitting in so much kyphosis all day long, which is not a bad thing, but just now you're limiting yourself into extension, and then guess what? They borrow somewhere else to get there.
Yeah. Let's take a second to thank our sponsors over at First Form. And this week I want to highlight their Formula One post-workout protein shake. I use this thing pretty much every day after my workouts, because let's face it, being here in the gym, working all the time with clients, putting on a podcast, it can sometimes be tough to get my protein in on a regular basis. And so I know that with the post-workout shake, the Formula One, first of all, it's fast acting. So right after your workout is a great time to get your protein in to help build your muscles, get yourself stronger, and repair what you've done in the gym. But also, if you don't know if you're gonna be able to get your protein in your regular meals, it's just a great way to make sure that you're supplementing and hitting those marks. So be sure to go over to firstform.com/18strong to get your First Form Formula One protein shake. And everyone that enters through that link is going to be put into a drawing every single month for free First Form products. So again, go over to firstform.com/18strong. Let's talk the hips a little bit, because that's another big piece that I
find. That's the next one I was going to go to.
Can be just kind of rock solid and hard for people to work through. So hip-wise, how important are those for the golf swing?
Your inter-rotation on your hip is maybe one of the most important things, especially rotating the pelvis in relationship to the hip, right? A lot of them can move femur on pelvis. The other way around, it's really difficult. So I'll put them in a lot of like block positions. Hey, can you keep this block here against the wall while you open up your hips? Just seeing how they can move. But I do start with just looking at the hip joint in general, external rotation, seeing where can they actually passively get there, so flexibility, and then can they actually move there? And then I just have them break down their swing. Like, let's just go watch you swing and see where you're super limited on. And there's a bunch of tests on that, but I think the hip internal rotation gets missed a lot. Obviously, external is still important. Having a hip that rotates is very important, but I think the pelvis on top of the femur is one of the most important.
That's a good point, because we do tend to see people doing internal rotation drills where they are so moving the foot, moving the leg, and the pelvis is staying stable. But you're saying, almost fix the leg and then move the pelvis on top of that, which is really how you're moving when you're in the golf swing.
Right, and then you can actually get them to, hey, can you control your lumbar spine on top of this? Because usually you lock in the lumbar spine and everything else, and then you just move the foot. Well, yeah, the femurs move, we're getting rotation, but it almost isn't the same. Well, it's not. It's not the same rotation you are when you're in a golf swing. You're moving everything else relatively because your feet are still staying there, and you're moving everything on top of it. So I like to give them both.
So you talked a little bit about the cars earlier. I would also assume that you, and I know this because I've seen on your page, you do a lot of what's called pails and rails, and some of those different, kind of FRC related kind of movements and techniques. What is going on when you're doing, and if you could explain kind of pails and rails in layman's terms, what's going on when you're doing those, and why are those so important as opposed to just the cars, which you were talking about before?
Right, so that's a phenomenal question. So cars I think of as a way to maintain your range of motion, or at least like a little check to see how you're feeling and how you're moving. We don't use cars to gain more range of motion, right? We have to have some sort of really more aggressive or maximum contraction strength effort to gain range of motion. Okay, so that's why it's important. So a pails and rails, it's a way to do isometrics at your end range of motion. If I can get you towards your end range and have you contract those muscles on the regressive or the progressive side and the regressive side, the stretching and the shortening side, you can gain more control in that range of motion and get stronger there. You can produce force in those motions. I don't show a lot of them. One, they're usually really boring to post because you're just sitting in a position. People are like, well, what? They don't understand it, and it's really hard to explain that in a quick 8-second reel. I usually like to explain those more one-on-one with people. I use them a lot in my own practice for people. An isometric is a great way to just start reducing pain and gaining range of motion. But you have to do those to gain active range of motion and control more space. Cars, maintenance. So you have to separate those, and then we can go on the pain levels and all that stuff. But that's the best way to kind of discern those.
Can you take a joint and give us an example of what it would look like to do a pail versus a rail?
Okay, so I think a very easy one to do is the shoulder joint. I think a lot of people understand it. If you're in external rotation, so you're trying to bring your wrist back behind your shoulder. I usually put people on the ground. They may have a block under their wrist, and they're trying to push that hand down into the block for the pails, and then they're trying to pull that away for the rails. So they'll feel all the anterior stuff, the stuff in the front of the shoulder, work on that first contraction, and we're trying to pull that away. They'll feel the backside of their shoulder pull themselves in external rotation. And they'll notice how much harder it is. One, they probably can't move there. Two, they'll cramp up like no other, and then they'll just get a lot more range of motion. The hip is a little hard to explain if people understand like 90-90, but I think that's always an easy one for people to understand.
No, that's a great one. So for those of you listening, basically like your hands up in a pitcher's position, like you've got the ball getting ready to throw, but you're lying on your belly, and then you're trying to keep your elbow on the ground, or might be elevated a little bit, but then you're trying to lift your hand so it's going up towards the ceiling.
Correct.
So when you're doing the pushing into the block, why is that part important too?
So that's the tissue that is lengthening. We have to also make sure that can contract in that range of motion. We don't want useless, I hate to say useless, but range of motion. Let's go back a second.
Yeah.
The rule of specificity says if you do something passive, you will get passive results. If you do something active, you'll get active results. That's why if you're just stretching, you won't get stronger there. So if I just put you in a shoulder, you need more shoulder rotation, I just get you to stretch all day. Well, you haven't gotten stronger there. So if you still go and take that baseball as hard as you can, bring it back and throw it, you're not stronger there. Nobody would believe that sitting in the bottom of a squat would make them stronger at their back squat, right? You have to train that with strength. It's the same idea with anything else. That's why you can see I took the internal strength model with FRC. They're blending strength training principles with mobility. They're not just two, exclusive things. They all melt together, and that's why it's so important to know that with rehab is you have to challenge and really give people something to work on and get stronger to see the results they're looking for. If I want to just get them to stretch, go do some yoga, go stretch all day, but you're going to get a lot different results than what you want. That's
such an important part, and I'm so glad you went there, because most golfers are looking for, I need more rotation. I need more rotation. Give me a rotation stretch. Give me something that's going to make my backswing bigger. But what you just said is so crucial, that you could stretch all day long and you could get yourself to be like Gumby, but if you don't then build strength with some resistance in those new ranges, you're almost putting yourself at risk for injury, right?
100%.
Yeah, so being able to find those positions, and I highly recommend you guys go check out Kyle's post because he does a good job of showing many of these, where you're putting yourself in a position and then you're creating force, you're putting tension and stress through whatever that joint is, whatever tissue that is, because that's then going to build that strength in that new range of motion that you just gained. So the stretching's great, but if you're just stretching to stretch, like you said, that you're not really going to get the benefit. Ultimately, you want to be stronger in that range of motion.
Yeah, and that's really important. People think mobility work, like it should be challenging. You shouldn't want to do a ton of it. If you're doing an hour worth of mobility, you're probably not doing it with the right intent. I coach a class over here on Thursdays, and it's a mobility-based class. And everyone's like, "Oh, we're going to do stretching." I've got them doing liftoffs to the point where their hips are cramping and they're struggling. You know, you should all. People get very like, I'll give them mobility programs, right? Like, there's only 3 or 4 things in here to do that day. I go, if you do those the right way, you shouldn't want to do more. You're going to get like, no one's going to go to the gym and say you need to do 100 sets of back squat. Do 3 or 4 sets. Put a lot of effort and intent behind it. You're going to get stronger. Mobility shouldn't just be a thing. I got to stretch for 45 minutes. I'm going to go and do my PVC pass-throughs nice and easy. It really should be challenging. It should make you sore. It should make you tired. And that's how you see the change that's going to last.
Yeah, I would venture to say that a true mobility program like you're talking about could be the most brutal thing that a person could go through because they don't expect it to be hard, right? Like my clients know, like if I grab like just a little bit, like a 1 pound weight, they're like, oh shit, something bad's coming, you know, like this is going to be hard. Or if I don't grab anything, you know, you're putting them in a postural position and they have to hold it like you're talking about. Those are the things that can be like super, super frustrating because they're so hard and they don't seem like they should be. And sometimes they have that neural component where your body's not really connecting with what's going on.
Yeah, they stare at it. They're like, I had a guy who he could squat 500 pounds. He can't pick his foot up off the ground in a hip hinge rotation to save his life. And he's just staring at it.
Yeah.
Drop him all the way down to his side. He's like a half inch off the ground. You're like, wow, okay, so there's something you can work on. And again, you can find the low-hanging fruit and find untrained tissue. We know something that's untrained progresses very quickly. It can get stronger very fast, and then you can just make the whole system better.
Talk a little bit about the neural connection of our bodies sometimes are protecting ourselves, right? So like keeping us from going into positions that we shouldn't be in, even though we're trying to, but the brain is sometimes that circuit. Can you explain that a little bit, and how do we almost bypass that circuit? Are there ways that you've found to kind of get past that?
Yeah, so biggest thing, if you're trying to gain range of motion and your body's guarding it, right? People who say I have really tight groin or hamstrings, typically it's guarding something. Well, instead of just saying we're going to stretch as aggressively as we can, I get them in a position or stretch where it's maybe a 4 out of 10 intensity, something they can breathe and relax into, right? You have to be able to have control in terms of your own nervous system. If you're fighting that thing and like, oh, I'm stretching, but it's an 8 out of 10 and I can't even bear to be here, well, then you're just reinforcing that negative stabilization strategy from that muscle. So get them in something they can relax into, and then we start adding in those isometrics because now we're teaching the brain to actually use that in terms of its own control, and you can start ramping that intensity. But that's where pails come in as like one of my greatest rehab tools because I can start putting them in positions that feel more safe to the body. They can get stronger in there, and then the brain lets them have that. A lot of people can relate where they say, I stretch my hamstrings every day. I come back and they're still just as tight. Well, maybe you're not making the change, or you're making a quick change. We can trick the nervous system temporarily, but then my goal with my patients, they should come in every single time and feel like their cold range of motion is better. You can leave my office after a half hour and my hip moves great now. But if every single morning you wake up and your hip can't move, well, we've missed the mark on that. I want to gain that and keep that because you should be able to go in the gym and not have to do 60 minutes of mobility in order to get into your squat. It should be maybe a few things you just want to work on.
Yeah, that's where that consistency comes in so much because somebody could go see you. And this is really so the traditional model of just straight up manual therapy. You know, somebody can go get manual therapy and then get sent out the door, not be given any kind of an exercise, not be given anything that they're going to then strengthen. And they come back and they're like, well, it's tight again. It's like, well, yeah, no kidding, it's tight. We loosened it up because literally heated up the tissue, moved it around a little bit. I stretched you out, and then I sent you on your way. And so, it moved well for an hour. But then the next day, nothing's changed.
Those are my favorite posts. A lot of clinicians do. They go, oh, look at their shoulder flexion we started, and then here they are when they left. But then I want to see what happens when they came back 3 days later. Were they right back to it? Because yeah, you can get more range of motion temporarily, but we got to be able to keep that. And that's why I tell people, you're going to do this exercise when you leave here a few times a day or whatever, every other day, whatever it might be, to help progress you. So when you come back in, we're not doing the same song and dance. If I'm doing the exact same treatment every single time, then I'm not doing my job or you're not doing your job. Someone's at fault here.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that video that Dr. Spina did? And it was kind of showing like that snake oil salesman kind of stuff where he's like, hey, look.
I know exactly which one, yes.
Here's a guy on a table, stretching out a hamstring, lifting the leg up, stretching the hamstring. Look how tight he is. And then brings him down. And I forget what he does. He
rubbed his shoulder or something. He's like, oh, here you go. And then
smacks him on the face. Or he's like, I could literally do anything here. And the second time I lift your leg, it's going to go further. So if you have a clinician that says, oh, look how much better you're moving after that. Sometimes that's for show. Sometimes it's to get people to buy in. And, they can, so then it's like, oh, wow, that really does work. But just know that that's not fixed, right?
Right, and that's why, as a chiropractor, I use manipulation for a lot of my golfers. I'll manipulate their T-spine and then say, hey, now let's go move that and strengthen it, get you, because we just opened up new range of motion. Temporarily, you've got some more stuff to work with here. Let's go and use that and hopefully try to keep some of that, get stronger there. And, that's why you can do stretching or soft tissue. I have a massage gun. I have cupping and taping, all these things that do have benefit as long as you're still doing the active stuff on top of that. And that's where I fell in love with FRC because I was a kid sitting in chiropractic school trimester 2 going I might drop out. This is just we're adjusting everything. This doesn't make any sense to me. So I attached myself to that during COVID. And then I was like, I have now a little bit of a basis to go over because they don't teach really any exercise. They don't teach that stuff. I had the training background. It helped. But most clinicians just go, I know how to get you out of pain temporarily, but how to keep it there, I don't know.
Yeah, which is it's an extremely valuable skill, right? That's what most people are coming for. Help me get out of pain. Then it's taking that next step to then help them get onto that path of keeping it where it is, moving forward, getting better, getting stronger. Awesome. Can you explain to me cupping? So I don't really know that much about cupping. What is the mechanism that you're looking to get? What's it good for? What does it help people with?
Okay, so I think a lot of people think it's breaking up fascia and all the soft tissue stuff. Do I think that's the case, and does literature support that? Probably not. Do I think it's great to help reduce pain temporarily, gain some more range of motion? It feels good. I think that's the end of the day. If it feels good, it's going to help them just get some movement in whatever area. Awesome. Is it going to bring down inflammation? No, because we're probably increasing inflammation. I don't use it a lot. There's very few cases. I try not to promote a lot of that because I'd rather just do a quick massage gun, maybe the voodoo floss, quick stuff. Okay, let's get moving again. Or if I have you, that's why I will not be the person doing dry needling or acupuncture. I think there is benefit, but I think it's going to slow down my process. I have to put these needles in you for 15 minutes. Now you got to wait. I think there's a time and place. Maybe some people use it more. I'm not usually big on all that stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Because that's kind of where my mentality was, and I just wanted to understand a little bit more about it. All right, so now that the clinic's open, rebuilt, is there a background behind the name or just a cool name?
It was a cool name. I'm sitting there and it was like, hey, it's June and I want to open this thing up as soon as I can. I was like, I got to start. I was just on Google every day, looking for words that sounded cool. I'm sending it to people. What do you think about this? I was very adamant it was Rebuilt Strength and Rehab because I wanted not to say chiropractic in it. I think I already would pigeonhole myself because people are still like, oh, you're a chiropractor. I didn't know that because strength is super important. I think a lot of doctors are even telling their patients that you need to get stronger here. You need to be stronger as you age. So it doesn't just say it's just for younger people. It's for everybody. And then rehab showing that, yes, it's not just, a strength training gym. But there wasn't anything super significant. Even the colors, it's like a blue like this. I was at the high school soccer team. We had camp that day, and my coach one of the coaches played for University of Rhode Island, and he gave us these shirts that had that color. I was like, oh my God, I want that for my clinic. So that's what we did the next day. It was really quick. But
yeah, man. Well, I love the name, and the colors are good. I'll have you know, I was doing my research on you, and my 10-year-old's like, ooh, I like how his letters are like those lines like that. So your logo looks good. Yeah. So
I appreciate that. I was on a website looking at things. I'm like, oh, I like this. I need someone to design that for me because I didn't own what that was. But I was online 3-4 hours a day just looking at things, trying to figure this out. I'm happy with how it all turned out.
Very cool. All right, my friend, before we close up, I got some questions that I got to ask you that we ask everybody that comes on the show. I know you're not a big golfer, so that some of these might not totally apply, but I think you could probably handle them. Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
Well, that's a Happy Gilmore. It's all in the hips.
It's all
I love that.
If you could pick a walk-up song to the first tee box when you're playing a little golf, what's your walk-up song going to be?
Ooh, I'm a big low weight guy from all those days. Probably a Millie. I love that one. That gets me hyped up.
Excellent. All right, is there a book that you tend to like to recommend to people, or a book that's really meant a lot to you over the years that maybe you've read a couple times or given out as gifts? It doesn't have to be anything related to fitness, chiro, whatever, just something that means a lot.
So at first, I would always recommend Atomic Habits. For most people, I loved it. One recently, though, that I almost value even more is called The Dip. It kind of really talks about when to keep going, when to not keep going, when you're just driving into something that's really not worth your time. And I found that very valuable what I'm doing, because there's certain paths I'm going down. It's like, hey, don't continue to keep doing that. Maybe you're wasting your time. Quit the thing that won't get you a lot right now to put effort in the thing that's going to get you a lot more over time. So I found that super valuable. And again, books like that can go to any sort of field, any sort of lifestyle. Like, a lot of people resonate with that.
Excellent. If you could pick a celebrity foursome to go play golf with, who's going to be in your celebrity foursome? Could be past or present people, dead or alive.
Oh, you know I'm already from soccer. I love Ronaldo, Messi. God, those are the one two. I would just love to see how they interact. You only see, and I think that's what's different with soccer. We don't see a lot of their personality as much as we do with like professional football and basketball. You see these guys all the time. I feel like we don't know who a lot of these guys are, especially with the language barrier. But if you had to pick four, I don't know. Those are my two, though, for right now. I think that'd just be incredible.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see how those two work together on the golf course, too.
I'd just love to see it, because we know how it is on the pitch. It's just so... They're friendly, but they see it.
Yeah. All right, if you could pick any place in the world, we've got the 18-strong jet fueled up, ready to roll. You get to play golf at any place in the world. Where are we taking you?
Honestly, somewhere warm. Somewhere warm after being a Chicago
Spoken like a true Chicago guy.
That is literally all I want right now. It's all I can think about. I've never really played golf anywhere outside of like the Midwest, so I would love to even just Arizona or Florida, whatever it is, somewhere warm and be able to see something that actually look nice too. You're out here, and the greenery's not really there until maybe 2 weeks out of the year. It's really nice, but I know it's not the answer everyone's hoping for, but just somewhere warm.
That's right, somewhere warm. I like it. All right, what's given the fact that you have done really well with your social media account, you've got a ton of followers. What's an account that you like to follow that you'd like to share with our audience? And again, doesn't have to be fitness related at all.
Mm-hmm. God, I should know what's full. This guy named Brock, he's got like 600-something thousand followers. I can look up the exact one later. He's the one that really taught me how to use social media and kind of ins and outs, gives me some things to do, not to do. He's the one that made me do that 30-day, not made me, but told me to do this 30-day challenge and got me being consistent, got me comfortable being in front of the camera. So, and I kind of like that if you're looking to grow your social media, like that was my favorite one. Because there's all these people that can give you all sorts of great fitness advice, but it was like, I want to know how to grow this, and he was the number one.
Okay, cool. I know that a lot of the fitness professionals that are listening and watching this will want to know that. So guys, we'll make sure that we link up that in the show notes. We'll get that on there for sure.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure. And then last thing, I'm going to ask two versions of this.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of golf advice you've ever been given? That's going to be the first one. And then I'm going to say, what's the best piece of personal fitness advice that you've ever been given?
Okay. Golf, I kind of alluded to this earlier, is let the club do the work. I was the guy who was just trying to go up there and hit as hard as I could no matter what, realizing like you don't have to absolutely hit it as hard as you can. The club will do a lot of it for you, especially when you're driving it. Fitness-wise, oh boy. I think the biggest thing is that intensity is the driver of most things, right? You have to have intent behind what you're doing. And this goes for anything, mobility, strength, flexibility, like have a reason for what you're doing. And I think that can go to any sport, any type of fitness. I think that's really important.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, this was super fun. Great to finally meet you. And thanks for taking the time to come on. We really love what you're doing. We're going to keep reposting your stuff for sure, and just keep going, man.
The world.
Congrats with the new facility with Rebuilt, and good luck to you.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast. And if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share with your friends. And of course, go follow us over on Instagram at 18 Strong. Thanks again. We'll catch up with you next week. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.